Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Freight Invoice Automation, Boost ROI with Automated Reconciliation in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. I'm Colin Schofield, a Finance Acceleration Associate here at Avantiico. We're excited to have with us today Steve Stallings and Johan Hay, our Dynamics 365 supply chain experts. They'll be leading today's walkthrough as well as sharing their expertise on freight automation and reconciliation inside Dynamics 365. Today's session is all about helping you take full control of your shipping costs directly inside D365 F&SCM. We'll take a look at the biggest challenges companies face, manual reconciliations, undetected charges, fragmented data, and show you how automation can solve these problems. You'll see a live demo of automated freight invoice reconciliation with up to 98 to 99% accuracy, plus how configurable tolerance rules can streamline approvals, eliminate billing errors, and recover hidden costs. We'll also cover how 3PLs can automate billing back to clients, how mid to high volume shippers can identify their true freight costs, and how real-time analytics can help manage high volumes and track carrier performance. Finally, we'll wrap up with real-world examples of margin gains and an interactive Q&A. Before we dive in, here's a quick look at the other webinars we have coming up. First, join us on October 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific Time for Dynamics 365 F&SCM Licensing and Security Enforcement. What's changed and what's next? In this live session, we'll walk you through Microsoft's postponed enforcement of Dynamics 365 F&SCM licensing rules, breaking down what's changed, what still lies ahead, and how you can leverage telemetry tools to stay compliant and cost efficient. Hosted by Morten Lugstrup, our D365 licensing and database expert, and featuring Sebastian Anderson and Tatiana Sabotin, this webinar will include actionable guidance on auditing your current license usage, tightening security rules and governance, and avoiding costly compliance surprises. Then on October 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, join our team for AI Builder plus Power Automate, a new era of process automation. In this live session, you'll see how Microsoft AI Builder extends Power Automate with AI capabilities like form recognition, text extraction, and predictive modeling to eliminate repetitive manual tasks. We'll walk through a real-world case where Avantiico helped a global manufacturer automate 100 to 200 purchase orders per day using AI Builder, Power Automate, and D365 F&SCM. Hosted by Shoaib Memon, our Power Platform Solution Architect, this session will break down the business challenge, the solution design, and the measurable results. Plus, showcase broader applications such as payment journals, bank statement reconciliation, and service processes. You'll leave with clear insights, key takeaways, and practical next steps, capped off with a live Q&A. Lastly, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat throughout this session. We'll make sure to answer them as they come in, afterwards in the Q&A, as well as following up via email. And without further ado, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So let me get started by giving you a little bit of context here. At Avantiico, we've developed a complete 3PL automation cloud that covers automated contract management, collection of data from warehouse management systems, both Dynamics and external warehouses, the ability to use the new warehouse only mode that Microsoft deployed about a year ago, multiple integrations to third-party systems, not just warehouse and transportation, but to expense systems, procurement systems, fulfillment systems, all kinds of data sources that would affect 3PL, a billing engine that automates that process, and then a freight reconciliation tool that can be used either with 3PL or as a standalone for companies that are not 3PLs. And then, of course, those include customer portals, analytics, and compliance controls. Today, we're going to focus on freight reconciliation. And we're going to make the assumption that most of you are not 3PL companies. So as a result, you're going to be using our standalone freight reconciliation solution. If you'd like more information about how we tie freight reconciliation into the 3PL environment for that industry, we're happy to help you with that. Just throw that into the chat and we'll answer those questions at the end of the session. The rest of the slide I'm not going to read to you, but it defines all of the major benefits of this set of solutions. And of course, you'll get these slides at the end of the presentation so you can go through those at your own pace. The process we're going to focus on today is the automated freight reconciliation solution. So where that starts on the left-hand side of this page is with carrier invoices that you're going to receive from your providers, DHL, UPS, FedEx, Hunt Brothers Trucking, any other source of information or of data that is shipping goods on your behalf. And the other source down at the bottom left is your freight bills, whether they're coming from an external warehouse management, an external transportation management system, from within D365, from fulfillment orders, or wherever you're maintaining the data about what you're estimating on your freight shipments is what I'm trying to say here. That information is going to be pulled in automatically as well. So what the process then is going to be setting up the matching so that we can automatically match those freight bills to the carrier invoices. Before I move through the rest of this process, let me explain why that's so problematic for most companies. First of all, you have the freight bill at the point you ship the goods. It's typically tied to a tracking number if you're using a parcel carrier, or it's tied to a pro number if you're using an LTL, FTL carrier. And the invoices that you receive from the providers, the carriers themselves, don't always match what the freight bills are that you generated. They could be a mismatch of dates. They could be a mismatch of amounts. They could be a mismatch of a number of things, including the cost components, the details like accessorial fees, fuel charges, toll road charges, delivery charges, and those kinds of things. To match all of that is very, very time consuming. So we've set up a set of matching rules that I'll show you, and these are user definable matching rules that you can define to best serve your business, that automatically then process all the matching between those freight bills and the carrier invoices. At the same time that we get a freight bill, we also generate an accrual. So finance is aware of the liabilities we're incurring as we ship and what's eventually going to have to be paid. Then moving over to the right in the middle of the page, what you see is we're going to end up with some results of that matching engine, and that's going to be the match history, all those things that matched, and the exception handling, which are all the things that either partially or didn't match that might require some human intervention. From that, we're going to end up with some analysis data that I'll share with you toward the end of the demo, and that allows you to do a lot of reporting on rate variances, caused by service levels, caused by accessorial fees, caused by data mismatches, or whatever those are, and we'll share that information with you. And then finally, you're going to pay your carrier, and because we're doing this automatically, you can pay them on time, and that's important. Carriers have very short terms, usually net 10 or something along those lines, and if it's taking you too long to match invoices, you're going to have to pay them even if you haven't recognized exceptions that you could dispute. And you want to pay them because you want them to keep showing up at your dock to pick up your goods. So with a very short payment term, like a net 10, you have to pretty much automate this process in order to get to results fast enough to confidently pay the carriers and determine what is of high enough value in terms of an error to dispute with the carriers. Once you send that create that payment invoice in your AP system, then we automatically reverse out those freight accruals, because now your finance department knows exactly what they're going to pay based on the AP journals, and we can now finish out the process. And that then allows you to take those legitimate charges that that didn't match, and possibly expense them if that's your only option. Or the other option in many cases is to charge them back to your customers as freight adjustments if your contracts with your customers allow you to charge them additional freight at the end of the process. So that's a decision you have to make, and it depends on your industry whether that's something that is commonly done and that customers will accept. But we do have that option to direct bill those discrepancies back to customers, so that instead of having to eat that discrepancy, you can go ahead and charge it to a customer. And we'll give you some examples of some of the results some of our larger customers are seeing as a result of that practice. Okay, so when we get into the solution, we have a workspace. This is a Dynamics module like any other. We wrote it in Dynamics Tools. It sits on the Dynamics database. We've simply extended the standard out-of-the-box finance and supply chain solution. So a user has the ability to see the volume of data that is coming into the system. In this case, we've got 300,000 unreconciled freight bills. We've got the same number almost of unmatched freight bills, meaning we haven't gone through the matching process yet. We've got 225 unmatched carrier invoices, and a number of freight bill component match history data and carrier invoice lines. The reason I point this out is that we've got some large customers that do up to $3 million a month in shipments. In a busy season, $4 million a month in shipments. And that's all parcel shipments because they ship not to warehouses or to retailers, but to individual customers, end customers. As a result, the volumes here can be extremely high. And we've tested the solution to handle millions of transactions in a matter of minutes. So we know we can handle the volumes that are typical of a non-3PL business as well. The other thing you're seeing at the bottom of the screen is we've got the unreconciled freight bills, we've got the unmatched freight bills and the unmatched carrier invoices all at your fingertips. So if you are the person doing the analysis, you can get to everything you need on one page. I'm going to show you a live demo here in a few minutes and we'll go through this process. Okay, the other thing you've got at the top is you've got the ability to import carrier invoices and import freight bills. Now this is automated within the system. This is a job that runs in the background, but you can also do it manually here. So we could go in and create new carrier invoices by importing them directly. The reason I put this in here in the demo is to share with you that we natively import from the carriers in the EDI format that they use. So whether it's a DHL 4010 format or a UPS 4060 format, we pull that data in native. You do not need a third-party EDI translator in order to do this. And if they can't send you EDI data, like many of the common carriers can't, we also accept CSV files and Excel files to pull in data and convert it that way. Processing is we can automatically do the matching. And again, this is a manual option from this form. This isn't the way it normally happens. It normally happens automatically in the background, but you do have the option to rerun a match. You've got the ability to do a number of inquiries here from this form, and then you can clean up your files because these tend to generate tons of data. So once you've gotten through data that is ready to be archived, you can take care of that as well. Okay, so this is what our live demo is going to cover. But before I get into the live demo, I just want to explain, this is our freight reconciliation module. This is the menu for it. And you'll notice right below these red boxes that I've shown here, a number of periodic jobs. This process is 99% automated. So the work that a person actually does is going to be going into these carrier invoices and these unmatched carrier invoice lines and trying to figure out whether we should dispute them or just charge them to our customers or eat them as expenses. That's where all the work is in the 1 or 2% that don't match. So if we can get your company to a 97, 98% match, then the thousands of invoice lines that come in become a few hundred that a person has to process themselves. The other reason you have to automate this process is that those of you that work with parcel carriers know that they will allow a shipment to be open for 30 days, 60 days or more. Each one has their own rules, and they will send you multiple invoices against the same bill. And so you might get a match the first time around, and then you'll get a subsequent bill because they incurred a fuel surcharge, and they sent you a bill a week later or a month later with additional charges against something that you thought has already matched. So we retain these matched records for the period of time required by the vendors so that we can do handle the multiple receipts from the carrier invoice lines of additional charges that might come in against something we presumed early on matched and then later becomes a mismatch because of excess charges that came in on a second or third invoice. So this is the automated process. And then the other place I want to take you guys is over here to look at the freight bill matching rules, which are user defined. They are nested in that you can set the order that the matching takes place, and you can set tolerances as well on the matching rules. So we'll show you how that all works after we go through the actual processes. So with that, I'm going to jump into the live demo and I'll stop this for just a few minutes. We'll come back here to wrap up. Okay, so live demo, we want to go over here and good, it hadn't timed out. So this is that same menu you just saw, freight bills, invoices, invoice lines, matching rules, all that same stuff. We're in the live system now, and we're going to start with freight bills. These are the freight bills that you're receiving from your TMS or your warehouse management system or your fulfillment system. So this is all the tracking number and estimate value and information that you're collecting when you ship goods to your customers. Okay. And this can have weight data. This particular one doesn't. It can have a destination order number, like a sales order number. It can have a lot of information on here for each freight bill line that we're shipping out. Okay. And like I said, those can come from multiple sources. I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back here. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you is carrier invoices. These are the invoices that are coming in from your carriers. And I'm going to switch over here where I've got a better example. Yep, I'm here. This example here is a carrier invoice that we processed a couple days ago. And what you'll see is several lines match. And typically, if you're receiving a carrier invoice with 1,000 lines on it or several hundred lines on it, you're going to see a 97, 98% match to the carrier invoices. These are because of the nested matching rules that we've got built in. You're also going to see some matches with warnings, and then you're going to see some not matched. Now, not matched in this case means that we tried to match it and there was an error big enough that we could not match. It could also mean that we just haven't yet matched it. But in the case of this invoice, we've run it through matching, and these are the results of matching. Okay, so let's start with one of these matched invoice lines. What we can see over here on the right is the tracking number, the dates. The invoice date was only 1 day after the shipping date. That's pretty quick, but this is a demo environment. We've got the vendor account, that's the carrier, the bill of lading number, which is your tracking number, or separate bill of lading number if necessary. Who did the shipping for us, in this case DHL, their account number, a reference number. This could be the end customer order number, or the end customer PO number, or any other data that you have on your shipment, okay? The bill reference number, all kinds of data there. Then the processing that we did here, and then the matching results. So I'm sorry, the cost components. These are the cost components that we received on this one. There was a DHL Smart Mail parcel fee, there was a fuel surcharge and a label fee, and we can see over here what the client, the carrier calls this information. So we've got what we put on the freight bill, and then what the carrier calls these charges as they bring them into us. Okay. And then as I scroll down further, I've got the matching history, and this says that we had a match. The carrier amount was $772. Our freight bill was $1302. So it's really $5 under what we expected to pay. So for now, it's matched. But I would expect that if this is under, that within a few days or a week, we're going to get a subsequent carrier invoice line against this same matching number, and it'll make up the difference of that $5 or close to it. So since it was under, it was an easy match. If it had been over, then our tolerance rules would kick in. So I'll share with that with you in a few minutes. Let's take a look at one that was matched with warnings. On this one, if we scroll up here, we can see what the warning is. The freight bill field on the fulfillment order has a value of 761. It does not match the carrier invoice fulfillment order number, which is blank. So in this case, the carrier didn't send us information that we expected to receive, which was the invoice number that the customer asked us to put on the freight bill. They didn't return a value of that. It came back blank. If that's the only error with this one and all the costs lined up, we could go ahead and do a manual match on this when we get into showing you how to reconcile these for the ones that are mismatched. And then finally, let's look at one of these that didn't match at all and see what the matching history is here. This one didn't match because the amounts, we were expecting 849. I'm sorry, this is the carrier invoice 849, and we don't have any matching history results at all. Let me pick a different one here. See if I've got better history on this one. Nope, same thing. So it just did not match at all. We could not match it up with a freight bill. So it's sitting out here unmatched, waiting for either a freight bill to show up or a invoice to show up that matches a freight bill so that we can match it. Okay, so this is from the invoice side. We started with a carrier invoice. We went to carrier invoice lines, and these are all those lines. And we'd expect to see mostly green dots for all the matches, and then we can identify the exceptions here as well. Johan, is there anything you wanted to add on this before I leave?
Look at the last line, because you were looking at a non-matched line, but the last line has a different difference.
Ah, okay. Oh, this is an interesting one. Because this is demo data, we have some old data out here. This says that the freight bill value is June 24th, and the invoice didn't happen until August 23rd. This particular carrier is not allowed to send us invoices after, what is it, 45 or 60 days. So this invoice has come in too late. So that's why it didn't match, is the invoice came in much later than the freight bill. And each of these vendors has a different tolerance on how late they can send us additional charges on additional invoices. Okay, good catch. Thank you, Johan.
And at
Okay.
least when you have this kind of you can set this tolerance to, let's say, 10 days, because you're expecting an invoice from the carrier within 10 days, and then if it appears to come in like after 20 days, so what's the reason? So you want to investigate why the carrier has sent this too late. And the standard carrier limits are like 90 days or 180 days for most carriers to reuse and to charge against a certain tracking number. But yeah, your own internal weighing method could be that you say, okay, after 20 days, it's worth for us to check what the carrier is charging, because this may be something which is absolutely wrong.
Right. In this case, it's only 59 days different. So we would allow this to be matched. So it did match with warning, but the warning tells us that there's quite a bit of difference between the freight bill date and the invoice date. So thank you, Johan. Okay, I'm going to go back to the next step in this process then, is the carrier invoice lines. So we've already looked at carrier invoices, and within an invoice, we looked at the lines. Why would we want to look at all the carrier invoice lines? Well, this form is really useful for finding the particular invoices by tracking number or by reference field. So here, if I've got all my invoice lines across all my invoices in one form, then I can scroll over here to the right and go by tracking number, and I could put in a specific tracking number by simply filtering on this field, put in this tracking number I'm looking for, and bring up every invoice line across every invoice, not just within an invoice, that applies to that tracking number. So it's very useful for finding data when you're doing analysis. The other thing is it includes the reference fields. So you saw on some of those records that we just looked at, there was a customer sales order number or a customer PO number in the reference field. So since we define on the freight bill what fields we're going to be looking for, this can also allow you to match to find all the records that relate to a specific reference number. So this is a form that is similar to the, wrong place. Similar to going into carrier invoices, but here we select an invoice and go to lines. Here we start with lines and we can look at all invoices that are impacted. So that's why that menu option is useful in analysis. Looking at unmatched carrier invoices, this is where the work gets done. So if I'm the analyst in the freight department that has to look at matching problems, this is where I'm going to see everything that's unmatched that's remaining on my desk. We might have processed 10,000 matches, but this is the list of 50 or 100 that I need to go through manually. I've got all that same data available that we talked about on the former screen, the basics of what's on the invoice. If it's an LTL carrier, more information about the pro number and that data, the processing that we did on this thing, the cost components, so we can see what those cost components are. In this case, there's a freight charge, a fuel surcharge, and a label fee. And as we scroll down, the matching history. In this case, that one has not been matched. So we can ignore that one and go on to the next one. So as a result here, we've got all the information we need in one place to make decisions about what we're going to do about these things. One of the things you'll see here at the top is here, I can do a direct bill. So if my rules with my customers allow, I can take whatever this discrepancy is and bill it directly back to my customer as a freight adjustment. And then it's off my books altogether. I can pay the carrier with confidence that it's not going to end up as a liability on my books. I can also edit or adjust things in this line if I need to do that. I can force a match to see what happens. See if when I process this, it does match or not. Let's see. Yeah, those are my options. Oh, and I can expense it. So if I know that this is an error that I'm going to have to eat that will not be disputed, nor is it going to be charged to a customer, I can simply expense it. It goes on my books as a liability, and we're still going to pay it anyway once we do that.
And
So
the good
this
thing
is the, go ahead.
The good thing is you don't have to do that line by line. If you, based on a reference, say, okay, this is related to this particular customer, then you can just select multiple lines and do your bill direct or your expense. Like some of the carriers come on every invoice with a charge per invoice. So you can select all these charges and then filter on the charges and do the expense with one press of a button.
Right. So instead of going through these one at a time, you can do them in batches or groups, which also speeds up the reconciliation process. So this is the main page where reconciliation gets done. Let's go back to the menu again. Match history is another important form to look at, and that is where you're going to get the data for all of your in-house analytics. This shows all the carrier invoice lines that have matched, the ones that did not match, and you've got full history here of everything that's been done in your records up until you archive them. And most of the time you're going to keep them 6 months or more and then archive them off because it generates a lot of data for you high volume shippers. But this gives you a great deal of information about the match date, the freight bill number, the tracking number, the PO number that you had on the order itself, the billing account, all this kind of information. Reference numbers when there's data in the reference fields, the rule that it matched on, was it a reference match, a full match, a partial match? All of that information is here. Whether there was a variance, because even though it matched, there can be a variance, and many times there is. It's just a variance within your tolerances. Okay, and more information out here if we have it. So lots of information here for your Power BI analytics, your AI analytics, and we have some analytic reports already built in that we can share with you if you're interested in this solution. Okay, so that's the inquiry.
The color difference. The color difference is actually showing like that a match was reversed. Because it could be that at first you decide to expense it, but then afterwards you say, hey, I'm now understanding that this one belongs to this customer, or I found a tracking number that was related to this one, and then you can unmatch this particular transaction and you can bill it to the correct customer.
So you can reverse match with a reason code and then go in and rematch once you've got additional data to resolve an issue. It's a good point. Thank you, Johan, for catching that. Okay, so those are the inquiry forms that I wanted to share with you in today's demo. Most of the rest of this, as you can see, is automated processes that run in the background. Nobody has to handle them. The carrier invoice imports, the freight bill imports up here, and all the matching processes that take place behind the scenes. There are some additional inquiries, but we've covered most of the important relevant things here already. The last thing I wanted to show you live is the freight bill matching rules, because you get to set these up. During implementation, we'll make some recommendations, but for example, on our full match rule, we've got several different matching criteria that is set up here in a sequence. So it's first going to make sure the carrier code matches. We're matching a DHL to a DHL, and this isn't trying to match a DHL to a FedEx. So the very first thing we want to do is match the carrier code. If that matches with a 0% tolerance, it's got to be the right carrier code. Next, we're going to match the tracking number, and we want the tracking number to match with a 0% tolerance as well, so we know we're mapping apples to apples. This is a DHL shipment for a particular tracking number and a DHL invoice for that same tracking number. After that, the bill date, but we've got a 5, and this could be percent or dollars, in this case, 5% or 5 days in this case, window on the ship date. So we may have
shipping dates. The shipping dates only have a number. The percentage is relevant for the amounts.
Right down here. Yep. So this is 5 days. So if the ship date mismatches by 5 days, we will still accept it. If it's over 5 days, we're going to throw an error indicating, and that's that warning you saw before that indicated that there was a shipment that was, I think ours in the example was 59 days out of tolerance. So if we look at this, this is an internal calculated value. Now, the charges is another thing altogether. What we're saying here under charges is we'll throw a warning if there's a discrepancy, but we'll allow up to a $20 discrepancy on the freight amount and a 200% discrepancy. So if they charge us triple what we expected, we're going to throw an error here. Or if they charge us $20 more than expected, we're going to throw an error. And this you can see is amount or percent. Now, when you start your implementation, you're going to leave these tolerances relatively broad because you want to get the process down, but you can tighten these up over time if that makes sense for your business to get more and more control over the variances that you're willing to allow. So that's the full match. You also saw a tracking match. And within the tracking match, what you saw on the example was the carrier code matched, the tracking number matched, but the amounts could have been way off. There is no rule here that says what the amounts are. So a tracking match is only a partial match, and it's going to have discrepancies in the amounts very possibly. Okay, the tracking and order match means we're also going to be tracking that order number, the external order number, and there are different partial matches and things that you can generate as well. So you decide what your matching rules are. You decide how tight the tolerances are on what you'll accept and what is a warning only versus what is a mismatch. And this allows you, go ahead.
Here is another interesting one. If you look at the reference match.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Scroll down a little bit on that, because it happens that when carriers have to return goods to your warehouse, then they get a new tracking number, and the original tracking number they most of the time put into reference fields. And in other cases, when there are fulfillment order numbers, then there may be an abbreviation or a prefix which need to be undone. And any string field, any text field basically can be modified, or like you could truncate the prefix or the suffix. And that's where the advanced matching logic kicks in.
Thank you. So that would allow you to strip off the prefix that indicates it's a return and just get the tracking number, the core of the tracking number there. Okay, thank you. All right, so that is the portion of the live demo that I was intending to show. I'll leave this open for a minute in case anybody has any questions about anything else. But essentially, once you've done the setup, which is pretty straightforward, defining your carriers, defining the data you're going to track at the component level, defining your matching rules, then this process runs automatically in the background all the time, maybe daily, maybe every hour, maybe every half day, whenever you want to run it, and then gives you the results that you're going to need over here with the unmatched carrier invoices for someone to go in and take the action to clear up the discrepancies. Okay, let me jump back to PowerPoint. And we'll go back into the presentation.
So for those who are familiar with Dynamics, and you saw, for instance, on the freight bill, there was a related customer number. But if the customer number is from your external warehouse, and you use that as a reference, there is no need to create the associated Dynamics customer numbers. It's automatically using the provided customer numbers and will also use that and present that in the matching history. So you can easily obtain from the matching history relevant information to your customers and say, okay, this is the variances that were related to my customers, and similarly also for the carriers.
That's a really good point. That fulfillment order number could come from a third-party shipping system. It could come from a third-party order management system. It doesn't have to be within Dynamics, but we can still match the fields because we import those fields as well. Thank you, Johan. Okay, so the first 3 steps in this process: receiving the or generating the freight estimate on your billing, generating the freight bill data, that and the accrual that accrues the cost that we're expecting to have to pay for, so finance is in the loop. Those are the first 3 steps, and they are fully automated. Step 4 here, importing the carrier invoice, that's also fully automated, so we haven't had any manual interaction at all yet. And then processing the freight bill match to the invoice and processing the AP invoice out through your accounts payable system to pay your carriers or to bill your customers, that is also fully automated. And then that reverses out the accrual. So now we've got the actual payment amounts and we don't have to have the accrued payment amounts. So that's automated. The only step in this process that is not fully automated is at some point here, you're going to be looking for discrepancies. And if not everything matched, someone has to validate why they didn't match and decide whether you're going to force a match, expense them, or bill them back to your customers if that's allowed. And then if you do have to force a match and expense them, are you going to dispute them with your carrier or not? So we've, as was mentioned very early in the presentation, we're hitting about 98%, 99% match with this process with our current customers. And the 1% is still a large number of invoices, but it's much more manageable than if you had to run this whole process manually. In terms of results, go ahead.
Just to give a little bit of, if you go back one slide.
Yep, got it.
Just a little bit of a heads up on the processing of the AP invoice. Like when you receive the X12 invoices from like the CSV invoice from your carrier and import it, then you have the option to automatically create an AP invoice journal, the option to approve it automatically, and the option to post it automatically. So there is a lot of variations and a lot of options to decide which part of the process is automatic. Similarly, of course, to the matching rules that we have set up. The rules are set for automatic matching in batch, but any other rule can be used when you do manual matching. So the lines that need particular attention can have a more open matching rule than the automatic matching rule. But the automatic matching is of course key, because that saves the time for looking into the individuals. Yep.
And while we can, as Johan said, process this AP invoice all the way through to posted, some organizations want their finance department to review those invoices before they post. And that's the only reason they would stop it prior to posting. But if you don't have a requirement, a rule that says they must be reviewed before posting, we can go all the way to posting so they're ready for the next payment run. So up to your business, how far you automate. So thank you, Johan, for that information. Okay. So what this really means is that we can offer a freight reconciliation solution, easy for me to say, that works regardless of where that data comes from. It doesn't have to be the Dynamics Warehouse Management System or the Dynamics Transportation Management System. It can be any of those systems or external systems, and we don't even require the internal TMS if you are using Dynamics Warehouse Management. All of this information is done within our module. You have the option to use or not use the TMS module. We don't need a separate EDI package or provider. We can pull in the imports directly via EDI. We've got much more flexible matching rules than the standard Dynamics Dynamics F&SCM. I've been around too long. Matching rules that are in the TMS. So we're a key part of your AP and AR automation process as well, because we can generate the automatic billing out to your clients for the direct bills and the automatic payment to your carriers when that's appropriate. We can seriously reduce the amount of human intervention required to get this job done. Fewer errors means further reduction in labor hours, and it allows you to focus on the activities that are going to generate the most value back to you. Those overcharges. And, you know, this is an industry number. It's not my number, but it's been cited by Forrester and Gartner and a number of others that especially parcel carriers routinely overcharge their customers by 15 to 20%. It's important to be able to capture those quickly and make sure that you're disputing those charges that you can identify that are significant. One of our customers, and they do a lot of shipping, they ship parcels to end customers. They spend on average $3 million a month on parcel freight. On their busy system, this time of year through December, they'll spend over $4 million a month on freight. They're recovering $400,000 a month in freight charges and adjustments. And most of those, like over 300,000 of those, they're billing directly back to their clients as freight adjustments. The rest of those, of course, they're going to dispute with the carriers themselves. So this is saving them in excess of $3 million a year in freight charges by being able to automate the process and get through just the discrepancies as quickly as necessary to avoid having to overpay carriers. And then finally, the auto accrual and reversal keeps your finance department in the loop as well. So there's no surprises at month end. And those accruals also make it easier to do month end close because all these records that are going to carry over the end of a period are already identified. Okay. Just to give you a little bit more information about our solution, it's currently in release 5. That just recently came out. And within the next release, we expect to have a Copilot agent that uses machine learning to review and compare freight bills to invoice discrepancies. Now, what that means is as your analyst sits down and makes decisions about which discrepancies to accept, which to charge back to customers, and which to dispute, the system is learning what you do, and it will take over more and more of that effort to really minimize the amount of manual labor involved, because it will start to take over the discrepancy processing, and the user will only be faced with looking at the extremely large discrepancies that AI has been told, if it's over this amount, we want to review it manually. So we're looking at really reducing the amount of work that goes into the reconciliation process after errors have been identified. So that'll resolve the direct bill, the expense, and the dispute within the range of tolerances that you allow AI to operate. And then, as we said at the bottom, only surface the discrepancies that fall outside of your normal processing rules, where we don't want AI making decisions for us. Okay, that's all I've got to present today. We're at about 40 minutes in. Let's open it up to questions now. And I'll stop sharing so we can go back to seeing who we are here. Colin, do we have anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat or the Q&A as of right now.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any questions, please enter them now and we'll be happy to cover them. And if not, you can always send us an email after the fact and we'll handle your unique situation. Colin, we can give that a couple more minutes, and if no questions arise, then I guess we did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't need to type the question. They can just ask the question, because we are there to answer the questions right away.
Okay. Well, not hearing any questions, we can give you back 18 minutes of your day.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, if anyone does have a question, feel free to reach out through the website, via email, to any of us directly. And thank you very much for attending.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.